everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Broken Speaker Podcast. My name is Greg, and I am joined by my co-host and brother, Brian. In today's episode, we kind of have a smorgasbord of topics that we want to talk about, and it's kind of just whatever's in the recent news.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to this because there's some stories out there that, I don't know, Greg, you and I just like to talk about different stories, and we just kind of like to start going off on different topics. So a lot of these stories might not warrant an entire podcast to them, so at least we get to talk about them. But before we get into that, how about we talk about what we're drinking today? Greg, what are you drinking today?
All right, well, today I've got a Lucky Traveler Blackberry Shandy. It seems kind of like it's supposed to be for the springtime. It's got, I think, a shamrock on there. Maybe it's a St. Patrick's Day beer. Regardless, I picked it up. It looks cool. So, fun story. When I went to the grocery store to pick up my beers this week, I was doing a mix pick 6-pack, whatever you call those things, where you basically just pick whatever's left on the shelf and fill up a 6-pack. Normally I get bottles and a healthy mix of bottles and cans, whatever, but there were like a ton of cans. So everything I have for the next 6 or so podcasts is going to be out of a can. And they all have really cool designs, so I'm kind of jazzed about that. I figured after the first 4 were cans, I should probably follow suit and just only get cans. Really pointless, but still. This Blackberry Shandy looks good. I wish it was nicer outside. The weather right now is freezing rain, so who knows if this will complement it, but regardless, I'm looking forward to giving it a try, and at the end of the episode, I'll let you know how I did. Brian, what do you have today?
So, I am drinking Dogfish Head's Namaste White Belgian. Or white. Namaste White. It's a Belgian-style wit beer. It's... let me just read the quick little intro for it. Our Belgian-style white ale, brewed with dried, organic orange flesh and peel, fresh-cut lemongrass, a bit of coriander, peppercorns, and a healthy dose of good karma. So, I'm excited to try this. I haven't actually tried this. The few things that stood out to me is the peppercorn. I don't know if I've ever had a beer with peppercorns in it, so I'm interested to see if I get that kind of spice at the end. And then the other thing was orange flesh. So I've seen a lot of beers where they have the orange peel in it, but actually brewing the orange flesh is different. I don't know if brewers generally, brew with the orange flesh and they just don't really say it, or if this is a unique thing. I'll have to look that up a little bit more later. But no, I'm really excited to try this. These guys are out of Delaware.
Well, you could never go wrong with a healthy dose of karma.
No. This is... I'm hoping that this will set up next week to be really extra good.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
But this week's not going to be bad in the first place.
No, it's not. Actually, everything's going real good.
Oh, good. So, now, do you have a beer fact of the week for us, Brian?
I do.
Okay.
And we're going to kind of keep on the whole subject of, whatever's going on in the news and stuff. So this one actually came up last month. And I don't know how I feel about it. But there are some researchers out there from the University of California, Berkeley. And what they've done is they've basically infused brewer's yeast with DNA from basil and mint. And those two plants naturally produce hop-flavored chemicals. And so what they're doing is they're taking the yeast and they're brewing a beer with it, but they're not adding any hops. And then the byproducts of the respiration that the yeast is doing, eating the sugars and creating alcohol and carbon dioxide, some other chemicals that it's creating taste like hops. So it's a beer brewed without hops. And the whole idea about this really is because in recent news, there's a lot of talk about how hops are going to be... There's going to be a shortage of hops. Hops take very specific weather to be grown. And so if you got a bad year, you're not going to have a good crop of hops. And because there's so many brewers out there that they use so many hops, that could be bad for the brewing industry. But I don't know how I feel about it. This is basically a genetically modified organism. And as a scientist, that doesn't really bother me. But as someone who likes beer and is passionate about beer, I feel like it's kind of cheating.
Well, yeah, I mean everything you drink has hops in it these days, and I mean realistically, it's supposed to be the same, but it's just synthetic hops. Is that what I'm understanding?
So basically, there's the chemicals that hops put into beer. This is what I understand. The article that I'm reading is from the New York Times, so it's not a scientific article by far. But basically, what they did is they were able to take DNA and create similar chemicals or flavors that would make it taste like it had hops in it. So I don't know. I'm on the fence about this. I'd have to actually taste the beer that it was produced with, and I don't think that right now they're just doing it out of a lab and they're making some beer in their small batches. I would be interested to see what happens on a large scale, because anybody that's ever homebrewed knows that the minute that they try to scale up their operation, that becomes an issue. It doesn't just go one-to-one.
It's unwieldy at that point.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's an interesting concept. Maybe this would be good for homebrewers.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know one of the things that we've done when we brew at your place is essentially you got to buy the fresh hops, and then it's using either pellets or this or whole hops. And I mean, if you could avoid that step and just kind of put in like some magic hop juice and have everything work out the way you want, small scale batches can probably become more viable in the long run if it turns out exactly the same. But one question I have, maybe you can answer this, is do hops add anything to the brewing process other than flavor?
No, so a lot of brewers refer to hops as the spice of beer. It'd be like when you're cooking pasta, and you know the Italian, like you're making a pasta sauce, and you know the Italian seasoning that you buy at the store. You know, you've put in your onions, you put in your garlic, you put in all that, but you just need a little bit something more. You put in a little Italian seasoning into the pasta sauce. That's what I would compare hops to being in the brewing industry. To like for the alcohol production itself, you don't need it, but
okay,
it gives it flavor, it gives it spice, and that's what you get from the different strains of hops.
Interesting. Well, then I guess I would be curious and interested in trying some of that beer if it ever comes out down the line. Maybe we'll have a future where hops no longer exists some hundreds of years down the line, and we all drink hopless beer. Yeah,
I don't know. And I was also thinking about this, and I'm just going to throw this out there because this is my personal opinion. Because when you use a hop, when you use either whole cone or pellets, and you put it into a brew, you are extracting the oils, which are these chemical compounds that produce bitterness or flavoring. And you can either be very efficient with extracting those or very inefficient. So my thought would be, why don't we start, doing an extract process prior to brewing? So you take those oils out of the hops themselves, and then you add a liquid extract to the beers. Now, I don't know if that's been done before, if that's been looked at, but I would think that would be the next step, maybe an intermediate step in between, yeast producing hop flavoring and using whole cone hops. Like, there's got to be kind of a middle ground, and I think it would be, improving the extract of those oils to give beer that flavoring.
Now, Brian, while you were talking about that, you basically gave me a wonderful idea. And so, now, bear with me here.
Okay.
What if you could make a microbrewery that experimented with all of these different types of brewing in small-scale batches and then released it to the public for consumption and then have them be the deciding factor of whether or not it moves to a larger scale?
So I think, and actually this is an interesting concept, Greg. I like that. A lot of major breweries are kind of doing that. So a lot of major breweries, they have a small batch system. So whether it's like a 1 barrel or a 15-gallon system, and what they do is they experiment on it, and then in their tap room they'll do a one-time release. and they get feedback from their consumers in their tap rooms before they actually scale it up. So I know that New Belgium just did this. They just released, and this is going to be a big thing because of the whole marijuana movement. But they just released a beer called the Hemperor.
That's a good name. I like it.
I'm not gonna lie. It's actually I'm pretty impressed with the marketing. I don't know if I'd like it, like the beer itself. I'll have to try it at some point. But the marketing for it is on point, and they did a really good job with it. But they actually tried it on a small scale first, and then they did a major release of it. So that way they don't waste all the money on a major release.
Yeah, all right. So I wasn't that ingenious. It seems like people are already doing it.
Well, yes and no. I do think that there needs to be more experimental, like with stuff like what we were just talking about with the DNA, the yeast infused with DNA from the different plants, or using hop oils, a hop oil extract rather than actual hops. Or just random brewing techniques. I feel like a lot of brewers are afraid to try these things, and I think that they need to go further and do it and take a risk on these things, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to advance technology in the brewing industry.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
All right. Anyways, enough about beer for right now. Greg, let's go on to the first story that you've got. What do you got this week?
Well, now this is a bit of a hot topic. I'm sure everybody listening has seen or heard of this in some form or fashion. And this is to do with the Facebook CEO Senate hearings, where essentially Mark Zuckerberg is put on trial against the Senate. Have you watched any of this, Brian?
I watched a little bit of it on TV, but the biggest thing that I've seen is that Zuckerberg doesn't know how to drink water. And he doesn't. His facial expression programming started acting up in the middle of the hearing.
Yes, well, according to Reddit, he's either a robot or a lizard person. So that kind of breeds precedence to essentially what you're saying there. Yes, he doesn't know how to drink water.
I mean, but there are a few things. So on top of that, the best part about that hearing that I actually watched was a senator, and I'll say this. All the senators that they chose to actually interview him were probably the oldest, most non-using Facebook type of senators that I know.
They must have been so detached from technology, and then their constituents they're representing are even further detached because they don't have someone to represent with an understanding of the technology. It's kind of frustrating.
Right, it is. But my favorite part was when one of the senators was like, "Mr. Zuckerberg, I don't quite understand this. How do you make money if you don't charge anybody for your platform?" And Zuckerberg kind of looked at him kind of questioningly and said, "Senator, we have ads." And then he just had a smile. Yeah. It was the most simple answer, and it was just...
That was a softball, yeah.
Yeah, but it was just if you're going to be interviewing someone on their platform, you should know this. That's one of the most basic things you should know about Facebook or any kind of internet website, is that they use ads to fund.
Yeah, it almost is like wasted time. The senator's aides or something should have been able to direct him to know that answer before asking it on a public Senate hearing scale, which, I don't know. The hearing itself was probably more for show in this instance. I don't know if anything will actually come out of it. But regardless, I think a lot of people around the world, or at least in the U.S., are questioning whether or not they should delete their Facebook accounts because of all this controversy that's coming out. And so, Brian, have you deleted your Facebook?
So, I'm not going to lie. I have started using Facebook less and less in the past year or so. I don't know if I'd delete my Facebook. Basically, the way I look at it is that I've got almost all of my information in some shape or form is used in a digital form. Whether it's banking, personal data, even healthcare is all via the internet. And in my mind, that people could already get my information from a million different ways. I don't know. I think we've been raised pretty well in the fact that we don't immediately put out information, or we're not constantly typing our social security number into the computer whenever a program asks for it. So I don't think it's something where you should delete your Facebook, but I think that it's a good wake-up call to some people to say, hey, you need to kind of worry about what you're posting on the internet. Like, you know, maybe if you got a new credit card with a cool little picture on it, maybe you shouldn't take that picture and post it on Facebook to show everybody, you know, the picture and your credit card's expiration date and number and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be pretty daft to be someone that takes a picture of a credit card and posts it on social media.
But it's been done.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. So something that I've got out of this is right now I barely use my Facebook account. If anything, I use it to keep in touch with relatives or even use it, the messenger portion, to send videos to friends. That's really the only things I use it for. And when I thought of deleting my Facebook account, I kind of thought, okay, well, I have alternatives for all of those modes of communication for the most part. But the part is, I don't know if that will solve the problem. It's kind of what you were saying. If I delete Facebook, well, I still have my Google accounts, and Gmail probably has more information on me than anything else. Mm-hmm. And then there's essentially hundreds of different ways that I've pressed, yes, I accept these terms, and some app or something is probably collecting my data just as Facebook is doing. So there's no way for me to really tell if I'm securing privacy just by deleting Facebook. It's kind of like, at this point, I see it as the tip of the iceberg. And yes, I do want to take a more proactive role in protecting my privacy, but I just don't know how to do that at this moment. And I'm sure there's resources out there, and in the near future, I can see a lot of probably services coming out where it's like, hey, pay us $10 a month and we'll protect your online identity. And who knows if they're scams or snake oil or whatever. But realistically, at this point, I don't think I could delete it, because it's going to take more than just deleting Facebook. It'll take like a whole rehash of my entire online presence, and that's a massive undertaking at this point, because I've been ingrained in the internet for 8 years now, ever since I started using a computer. So who knows how far back I'll have to go, or how far it'll actually reach.
Well, so something that I thought of the other day that I hadn't really thought of before, before Facebook, we had MySpace. And
oh yeah, and I have no idea what that account is doing right now.
I tried to go back to MySpace, and I couldn't log into my account. And so, but this was the whole idea, is I was because I just basically stopped using MySpace one day. I just stopped logging in, and I switched to Facebook, and I've forgotten. I used MySpace for probably 3 or 4 years, and so there's probably information on there that's probably not personal private data, I would assume. And it probably has it definitely has no meaning or value to my current life. But it's just an interesting thing, is that we don't always remember the trails that we leave through the internet.
Yep. Well, now I just did a quick Google trace of MySpace, and then I did my name after it. And it didn't come up with anything immediate, so I'm sure I'm fine. Don't worry about it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's now some Russian website, and
oh no, don't bring that up. Okay.
Anyways, but no. So, did you also see something about these hearings were being streamed on Twitch? I thought Twitch was just more for video games or stuff like that.
Yeah, Twitch has a weird thing going on. It's been for video games, and it's focused on video games for the most part. But it's got IRL streams now, where people just stream themselves doing random things that normal people do, which is odd. But the other day I actually got home from work and opened up Twitch to see if anybody was streaming, and then the top viewed stream at the time, or it was one of the more prevalent ones at least, was a Washington Post stream of the Facebook Senate hearing, which is what? I guess it took me aback. I didn't realize news channels could just stream Senate hearings and get some sort of content value out of that. Now, I don't know if any of you guys have been on Twitch. The comment section of Twitch and the live chat going on, it can be rough. On the larger channels, it's basically a smorgasbord of everybody going crazy. When things happen, it kind of blows up, and it's all over the place. You kind of get all walks of life and a bunch of trolls and stuff like that. On the comments and the channel that was streaming it, the Facebook Senate hearing particularly, it was brutal. They were railing Mark Zuckerberg. And it could be almost comedic value. Realistically, I'm sure Washington Post was trying to just stream it as like any other streaming service on their website or something like that. But they got some sort of content goldmine because people are posting news articles about how it was streamed and the comments are off the wall.
Well, what'd be funny is, how I think it's Jimmy Fallon does celebrities reading mean comments about themselves.
Yeah, well, they do like Twitter posts.
Yeah, Twitter posts.
Like
yeah, so I feel like they should just have Mark Zuckerberg go through the most brutal of the Twitch comments during his hearing.
Oh, goodness. I don't know how he would handle that. Everything I've seen is like he just doesn't want to deal with this. But
well, his programming would start probably malfunctioning, and he would probably start blaming the Winklevoss twins, and revert back to core programming right there.
Yeah. You have to have the techs come by and patch and update.
Anyways, let's go on to the next article because I think we've,
Brian, do you have something for us?
I do, but I think we've pretty much beaten the Facebook CEO to death.
Well, it's pretty rough right now.
But coming out of California, I found a kind of a comedic thing. A California judge rules that coffee causes cancer, and that coffee providers will soon have to put a warning label on the coffee.
Are you serious about this?
I'm dead. Yes, I'm dead serious. This is actually a thing, and actually, this was a lawsuit that was originally filed in 2010. So apparently, when coffee's roasted, one of the chemicals that's produces a byproduct is acrylamide. Now, California has this list of chemicals that produce, cancer or possible cancer producers. You've seen it on all different kinds of products, and it's like, oh, this warning is for the state of California. This product contains a chemical known to cause cancer. California is like ultra sensitive about this. But acrylamide is known to cause cancer. I would also like to list the current, some of the other products that acrylamide is found in, Greg. So are you ready?
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
Potatoes.
Like, wait, hold up. Just raw potatoes?
Just potatoes.
Oh my god. Okay, go on.
Crackers. Bread. Cookies. Breakfast cereal. Canned black olives.
That one's specific, okay.
And I mean, this is going after the old people, but prune juice.
Oh no. Oh dear. Now I can't drink prune juice.
I mean, this is almost comical. And the thing about it is that the attorney that is representing the nonprofit that filed the lawsuit admits that he is addicted to coffee.
So is this like a vengeance story? Like he wants to get back at the man?
No, in my mind, like, because I was just reading some stuff from him. He's addicted to coffee. He's like, but he would rather have his coffee without acrylamide. Here's my thing. This, to me, is somebody posing as a nonprofit, wanting to get money out of companies like 7-Eleven, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, all these big companies that, are publicly traded, have a lot of money, and there was actually 13 companies that have already settled with this lawsuit. They've given the nonprofit money so that the nonprofit doesn't go after them legally.
All right. Okay. So it's kind of like a cash grab at this point.
In my mind, this is exactly what it is. But what's crazy to me is this California judge ruled in their favor.
Well, I mean, if it does have acrylamide and acrylamide does cause cancer, then technically they're right. But realistically, that's just like so many random things. Like bread. Okay, so should we all stop eating bread? Or is there an easy way to get rid of acrylamide? It doesn't seem like they're solving the problem. They're going for a cash grab.
So one of the things I want to point out. So back when I was in college and studying biology, we did a lot of learning about cancer and what causes cancer and stuff. And one of the things that I stuck out to me is Greg, do you know what the most common carcinogen in the entire world is?
No, I don't know. What is it?
Black pepper.
Okay.
Black pepper is considered a carcinogen, and
Put that on everything.
And you do, and that's the thing is, are you going to stop using black pepper? My thing is that just because someone uses black pepper doesn't mean they're going to get cancer. Just because someone drinks coffee doesn't mean they're going to get cancer. Like, I think that the thing about cancer is because to get cancer, you need multiple genetic mutations in your cells over time. It can't just be one thing. Like, you're not going to get cancer just because you drink coffee. You're not going to get cancer just because you use black pepper. It's going to be a mixture of things. Now, if you drink coffee and you chain smoke like 2 packs a day, you're probably going to get cancer more likely because of the chain smoking than drinking coffee. So, I don't know. But the main thing is that if they have to put a warning label on a cup of coffee, like a pack of cigarettes, let's say, do you think that you would be turned off from buying a cup of coffee at like Starbucks or 7-Eleven, Greg?
No, I don't think I would actually at all.
Yeah, so that same thing with me. So I think that people, like, this whole thing is just a cash grab, and I think it's completely ridiculous. And these are the kind of lawsuits that people should be able to say, all right, just stop. Stop right there. This is stupid.
Yeah, it's kind of a waste of time on most of these things. If everybody starts having to print out cups or something for these large companies that have that warning on it, it's just a waste of space, waste of ink, waste of money, waste of time. I mean, so what if it's man, I am just against this article. You got me in a tizzy, Brian.
Well, and that's why I brought it up, because I just when I first read it, I thought that it was like, you know, those like Facebook things where it's like, oh,
it's fake news.
Yeah, fake news kind of thing. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. And then like 2 days later, I saw the article that I read actually came from CNN, and there's tons of articles out there. Like, this is a legitimate news story. This is a legitimate lawsuit. And it's just crazy to me that it has gotten this far.
Well, I guess I'll be more careful when I think about having that second cup of coffee in the morning.
Yeah, I'm not. I need coffee. I don't know how else to wake up. So, coffee for life. That's me.
All right, fair enough. So I guess do we want to move on to another story, Brian, or do you have more to say on that?
No, I'm done on my coffee rant. Greg, what else do you got? Do you got something better for us?
So switching gears, I think we're going to move into something a little bit more video game related. Have you ever seen the documentary called King of Kong?
I have seen it a long time ago. And isn't it about the guy who has the world record on the Donkey Kong arcade game?
Yeah, well, it's not just about him. It's kind of about that whole culture around actually getting high scores on arcade games, which is actually pretty intense. It was a really good documentary. If you ever get the chance to watch it, I would highly recommend it. But essentially, the story kind of goes through a few ups and downs, a little bit of a heartbreaking tale about a existing King of Kong or Donkey Kong championship Okay, it's not a Donkey Kong championship, but it's a high score holder. And I think his name is Billy Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
Billy Mitchell. He's the one who holds the high score. And then there's this tale of another guy who built a Donkey Kong arcade cabinet in his garage and was basically obsessed with beating his high score. Now, throughout the course of the documentary, it kind of goes to the point where the guy in his garage ends up beating Billy Mitchell's high score, but Billy Mitchell submits a videotape of him achieving a higher score than that. And it's kind of hard to tell because you don't see him. You don't see Billy Mitchell completing the high score. You just see the video of the playthrough. And it's hours long of focused gameplay of beating Donkey Kong to get a high score. And you couldn't tell if it was doctored or not. But recently, it's come out that the Twin Galaxies high scores, where Billy Mitchell was prominently featured as the Donkey Kong high score holder, as well as Pac-Man and a couple other things, all of his scores are being removed because I think it's coming out that he probably cheated to get these. So it's like this big scandal that's going on right now in the old arcade cabinet gaming worlds, where Billy Mitchell is basically getting wiped of his titles from being the Donkey Kong and Pac-Man champion.
That's crazy. I feel like you know, arcade games and stuff. I don't know. I feel like there's almost this nostalgia that's coming back with it. So I'm wondering if we'll get a little bit more. Maybe there'll be more championships, more people playing these old school games and stuff. It's almost like it's cool now to go back to those games, but people are putting it under more scrutiny. But I don't know. I don't know how I'd feel about that. Like how can like I don't know. In my mind, you have to prove that he cheated, right?
Well, and I mean, in the documentary, they kind of go over it. There's some points in the video where it either cuts out or there's like static, and they're assuming it's doctored in and made to look like he messed up. Or he didn't mess up, but he actually did. And so it's kind of tough to tell. Realistically, if you're going to set a high score, it should be in person at an arcade cabinet with judges behind you for a long sessionable period of time and, being able to do all that stuff, right? So I guess, in my opinion, what I took away from the documentary was that Billy Mitchell was a cheater and he's a kind of scummy guy. But regardless, I don't think I can make any judgments on his character just based off of a documentary because it's kind of not my viewpoint. I've never met the guy. Realistically, though, I think the culture surrounding arcade high scores and all of this, like, it's almost feels like an underground movement to bring back arcades and high scores and stuff like that. It's really cool, whether or not it's controversy or not. Being able to just like hang out and play arcade games is fun. Video games are fun in the first place, right? So how hard could it be to just get everybody together around an arcade cabinet with some pizza and some beer and play some games and get some high scores? Now, I mean, high scores take tons of time, like hours of time of intense focus. So I don't think I could do that. But, it's still kind of cool that all this is coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know what I think probably is spurred to Greg? Stranger Things.
Well, I don't think that was the one cause. And I know a lot of people have been feeling that nostalgia factor, and Stranger Things is kind of reaching for that era, but I'd have a tough time pinpointing it directly to Stranger Things. That's my opinion. Okay,
fair enough. No, but I agree with you. I think there is a nostalgia factor out there, and there are people that are going to really want that kind of stuff. I know a lot of my friends. Right now there's a big hype for people getting pinball machines at their house in their basement and stuff. And I know that that's kind of a coming back. Or there's a lot of bars nowadays that are the video game bars, and you can go and have a couple beers and play 25-cent video games. So I know that that's a huge thing that's coming back, and it's kind of turning into like almost like a social movement. But it'll be interesting to if this kind of takes it out of the underground and back into like almost a mainstream,
Well, I mean, the one thing I think that would hold it back from being mainstream is I don't think there's arcade games and arcade cabinets being produced in modern times to kind of reach the nostalgia factor but bring it to a different age. I don't think that's the case. All of this is based on old games and old arcade cabinets. And if there's no new games coming out, then it's going to be hard to sustain that movement for some time because nostalgia wears off. I mean, you've seen it with popular movies that come out, and I mean, even Stranger Things. Sure, yeah, watching Stranger Things for a week and getting all engrossed in that nostalgic 80s or whatever period it is, it's good, but it's not going to last for, I don't know, years on end. I'm not going to be nostalgic about that time period for, I don't know, 5 years down the line. Mm-hmm. Heck, I didn't even live in that time period, so how could I really be nostalgic about it?
Right.
So that's, it'd be cool to see it mainstream. It'd be cool to see video games or games in general become more prevalent in like modern culture and stuff like that. Kind of like how I guess you could say Fortnite has been, where almost everybody in the world is playing it, apparently.
Seriously, every time that I open up any of my social media apps, there's a Fortnite video within the top 3 posts. It's insane. And now all these like major like sports stars or actors and stuff are playing Fortnite. It blows my mind. And I remember when you introduced me to Fortnite and you said, "Hey Brian, hop on this game. We need a 4th person." And I was like, okay. And I had no idea about Fortnite. I had no idea about, these kind of style of games like the PUBG or Fortnite style. And, it's now just so popular. It's almost like video games are, becoming a social, like, I don't know, the Twitch streaming and stuff. Like, I just recently started watching some Twitch streams. That's new to me. But I feel like Twitch streams now, like, 5 years ago, if you said Twitch streams to someone on the streets, there's probably like a 20% chance that they know what that is. And nowadays, everybody knows what Twitch streams are. And I was even talking to someone the other day that knows about the Major League Gaming. And they've never played any of the games that they play in Major League Gaming, but they knew, I don't know which one of them is, like League of Legends or something. I've never played that. I've never like watched a game, but I know that that's what they do in Major League Gaming. So I feel like it's becoming pretty popular, just because of, social media, and it's starting to take a hold.
Yep, it's definitely pretty cool.
All right, Greg. So now I want to go a little bit into the world of sports, specifically U.S. soccer. So I know I'm going to butcher the name, but Zlatan.
Ibrahimovic?
Yeah. So,
yes.
Again, he came from Manchester United, right?
I believe so,
yeah. So he's now playing for the LA Galaxy. And he is a character. I think that's the good way to put him. Before he came, when he first signed with the LA Galaxy, he took out a full-page article in the LA Times saying, "Los Angeles, you're welcome."
It's pretty arrogant, I think, is what you should say.
Oh, it's absolutely arrogant, but it's awesome. Like, he's my new favorite MLS player. And if you watched his first game, he had 2 incredible goals that were just, out of this world. And then at the very end of the game, so he only played for 20 minutes, and he had 2 goals in this game. And at the very end of the game, they were interviewing him. It was his first game, on the LA Galaxy. And they said, well, you weren't in for the first part of the game. What were you thinking? He goes, well, I was listening to the crowd, and they kept chanting, "We want Zlatan. We want Zlatan." So I gave them Zlatan. And, like, that was his answer to it. But this is where it's funny. So he actually, I think he's got, he's kind of the king of one-liners right now. So in the Premier League, he had a bunch of little one-liners, and I've got a list right now of some of his one-liners. I'm just going to go through a few of them with you, right, Greg?
Okay, lay them on me.
All right, so the first one, "I can't help but laugh at how perfect I am."
Oh my goodness. All right, that's a good one.
So the Arsenal manager offered a teenage Abramovich a trial, and he responded in the media as, "Zlatan doesn't do auditions."
All right, so he's been like this for a long time, from a young age, yeah?
Yep. And then
okay.
So in the middle of one of his games, they say he twisted a Liverpool defender. And this is how he described it. "First I went left, he did too. Then I went right, he did too. Then I went left again, and he went to buy a hot dog."
All right, so this guy has an attitude, but like in a good way. He's very confident, he's cocky, and he brings a higher level of gameplay to U.S. soccer, or to the MLS.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to finish one more thing with one more quote. I'm sorry, I have to.
Okay.
So he was exchanging with a reporter ahead of the 2014 World Cup playoffs, for qualifying playoffs. Zlatan goes, "Only God knows who will go through." And the reporter said, "It's hard to ask him." Zlatan says, "You're talking to him."
Oh, wow. Well, that sums it up right there.
Like, this guy is the most arrogant, cocky, soccer player I think I've ever heard of. However, he can back it up. So I'm very excited to see it. But do you think that he's going to have a big impact on soccer? Is he going to be bigger or smaller than Beckham? Because this is kind of the similar thing of Beckham, but Beckham came over to the MLS when he was older.
Yeah, I mean, they got to be paying him quite a bit to keep him here. The European League is where he's kind of found his feet, and he had a lot of success over there and made a lot of money over there. So he must be, I guess, if he's not breaking the bank, then he's going to be bringing in the fans. I think you and my dad have already bought tickets to see him when he plays the Rapids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he's been here what, a month, and he's already getting people to buy tickets 3 months in advance.
Yep. So I want to throw this out there though. He took a pay cut coming to the MLS. So he was earning 21.8 million euros a year in the
Premier League.
Yeah, Premier League. He's only earning 1.8 or 1.2 million per year here in the US.
Okay, now that's a salary. I bet he's still got a lot of ads or endorsements coming up.
Well, I bet here's my thought is that he's going to be in Los Angeles. He's going to be around, lots of really famous people. I bet that he is going to bank a lot of his career on creating a brand for himself. So
okay, yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I just think he's going to be fun to watch. And I don't know. It's almost like the whole Beckham thing is like you want. Or who was the other one that I think that came? Was it Freddie Adu?
Freddie Adu started in the U.S.
Oh, he started in the U.S. Okay. Anyways,
there were a couple others, but
there's a couple others that you just kind of want to watch every once in a while. They're fun to watch, and I think that's the thing about U.S. soccer is it's the skill levels different. Because you remember when we went? I was thinking about this the other day. It's been a year since we were in Europe, Greg. And when we went to the Ajax game in Amsterdam, the speed of that game was so much faster than anything that the MLS here in the United States has.
Yeah, well, I mean, this could also bring more experience, newer players, younger players, people that would rather try out for the Premier League. They might start thinking about going MLS because they've got someone of Premier League status to compete against. They might get Zlatan an experience, right? And then they'll be able to use that in their future.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely something that will probably increase the interest in MLS over Premier League. I don't think it's going to revolutionize the league and get us to be on the Premier status, but I think it's always a good step in the future to get someone like this playing in the U.S. Okay, now you've heard the crowd scream for Zlatan, Brian. Now, have you ever heard... We're going to switch gears real quick here. We're going maybe 50 miles in the forward direction. We're going to switch into reverse. It's going to be a jolt. Anyways, have you ever heard of lynx screaming in trees?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, now it's mating season, apparently, in Canada. And there's a video that's come out. And it is terrifying. So I want you to give a listen to the link and give me your honest impression of what is going on.
All right, here, give me a second. I'm starting it now.
All right. You can pause the video. Now that goes on for 2.5 minutes. Where essentially there's two lynxes in the trees and they're chasing each other. It's mating season, right? But it looks like the female is screaming her lungs out at this dude chasing her. And it is frightening. I did not know that cats could sound like demons, but there it is.
I'm not gonna lie. If I was, up in Canada and I heard that, I would piss myself. Like, I would be terrified if I did not see what that was coming from. Or if I saw a lynx, I'd probably be terrified too. But that was otherworldly, Greg. Otherworldly is the only way that I could describe that.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine if you were in ancient times, older times where you didn't have the technology of the internet to tell you what exactly that was, and you're just walking through the forest in the spring, and then all of a sudden you hear or some crazy screaming going on in the trees above you. I think I would assume that the place is haunted and turn around and run in the other direction.
Absolutely, 100%. Haunted, demons. This is how mythical tales get started. They're like, in the Canadian wilderness, you can hear the syrup banshee off in the distance.
The syrup banshee? Really?
I don't know. I just thought that was appropriate.
Okay, all right. So we've now created a monster called the Syrup Banshee that screams like lynxes. I want some fan art right there.
Yeah, no. If somebody could send us the drawing of the Syrup Banshee, that would be great. That's funny, Greg. That's terrifying, but that's funny. And honestly, the other thing about that is that I would not believe that was actually a true video. I would think that somebody had dubbed over that, but this is actually from National Geographic.
Yeah, so it's a reputable source.
It's a reputable source, and again, that is terrifying. I'm glad you stopped me because you said it goes on for like 5 minutes. I don't think. I probably would have listened to it for 5 minutes, but I would have nightmares later tonight.
Well, yeah, it's pretty rough.
All right, well, do we have any other news articles, Greg, or are we kind of winding this down now? Because we've gone through a lot of different stuff today.
Yeah, this has actually been a bit of a longer podcast, so I think we're winding it down. How about we move on to last call? Brian, what do you have for us?
I think that last call, I don't know, I'm still going to be drinking coffee. I'm still going to have a Facebook. I'm not going to Canada during lynx mating season.
All right.
And no, I think this was awesome. I think this was a really fun episode. I think we should do similar formats to this in the future. So I think everybody listening should be prepared to see this kind of episode again. What about you, Greg? What's your last call?
Well, in regards to the beer I'm drinking, the Blackberry Shandy, I think my final review of it would be that it's very fruity, almost overbearingly fruity. I don't really care for blackberry taste, so maybe that's probably why I didn't enjoy it as much as I did. But for what it is, it's a good beer, I guess you could say. It's not overly tart, not overly, I don't know, hoppy or anything like that. I'm not the best at beer reviews, don't worry about it. But it tastes good. I drank it. It's whatever. I don't think I'll ever drink it again, but it's a blackberry shandy. Some people like that. How about you?
So for my beer, I think the reason why I forgot to talk about it when I was doing my final call is that I'm kind of disappointed in it. How I was talking to the peppercorn and the lemon or the orange flesh. It tastes like a regular wit beer. It's not a bad wit beer, but it's not anything incredible.
Yeah. It's not revolutionary.
Yeah, so I mean, it's forgettable. I don't have to have it again. It's not something that I would mind. Like I wouldn't go out of my way not to have it again, but I wouldn't go out of my way to have it again. So I don't know. I was expecting more. A little disappointed. Not bad, but never have to talk about it again. But yeah, what about the podcast, Greg? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, well, yeah, getting back to that. I think I'm on the same boat as you. I'm not going to delete my Facebook. I'm not going to stop drinking coffee. If Zlatan ever comes to Michigan to play, which I don't think Detroit has an MLS team. Well, maybe they do. I don't know. I'll have to look into it. If Zlatan comes to the Michigan or somewhere around here that I could watch, then I might go see him. And yeah, I definitely want to try to get into a bar that has arcade cabinets and try playing some of that. So it's been a good podcast, I guess you could say. Talking about all this stuff is it's fun. It's a little bit away from the ordinary of our format where we just kind of deep dive into one topic. So going over a lot of random things is enjoyable. So I hope we get to do this again. And yeah, that's what I got.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for listening. And I know that Greg and I hope that you guys will tune back in. Check out brokenspeakerpodcast.com for our most up-to-date blogs and up-to-date podcasts, and our YouTube channels where we post our podcast, which is where you'll be listening to this one right now. So be sure to check back soon, and we will have something new for you. Until then, have a wonderful week, everybody, and cheers.